what happens. So, I'm Katie Masoretz. I'm Chief Policy Officer of HackerOne. I have the honor of introducing the one and only Charlie Miller. How many of you know Charlie? Awesome. Okay, so Charlie, when did you and I meet? 2000, a decade ago, maybe? A long time ago. But Charlie holds a very special place in my heart among his many, many accomplishments of ponage. He's one of the folks that stood up and called out the No More Free Bugs movement. How many of you have heard of that? No More Free Bugs. And then we spent a long time talking together, like years, I think, where I kept asking for his counsel and support and help in terms of how to structure, what bounty programs might look like at the most reluctant company in the world to do them at the time. But Charlie is going to talk about his profound and deep hatred of Infosec, and we're going to absorb that hatred like the rays of sunshine that we were absorbing yesterday. And that's being tweeted right now. Anyway, without further ado, Charlie, I will hand it over to you. And thank you so much for closing out the wonderful AppSec Cali conference.
Thanks. So Katie would call me like once every 6 months and be like, yo, Charlie, we're going to totally release a bug bounty at Microsoft. And I'd be like, okay, tell me about it again. And then 6 months would go by. Hey, we're totally going to release a bug bounty at Microsoft now. What do you think? I was like, sounds like a great idea. So this is how I basically think. Alright, so anyway, I'm going to tell you why I hate my job, and hopefully you guys have some of that. The other thing I want to kind of start out by saying is, not to brag or anything, but I'm a decent public speaker. Normally I talk about sort of in-depth research and stuff, and I'm really good at that. I'm a terrible keynote speaker, so unfortunately you guys ended up with that. But, oh well. So the thing that, I don't really even know what a keynote is supposed to be. So I can get, I did research, I'm going to tell you about it, but I don't really know what keynotes do. And so the only thing I know is I go to conferences a lot, and sometimes I go to keynote, and from what I can get is they just sort of talk about whatever they feel like, and so that's what this is about. Alright, so this slide is supposed to convince you that you should listen to, at least pay attention a little bit to what I have to say. And so I've done a bunch of security stuff. So why on earth would I hate Infosec? Well, it's stuff like this that sort of starts off, right? So, people don't really get what we do, and you see movies and scripting TV shows and stuff, and that doesn't seem like what I do every day. What I do every day is not nearly as fun or exciting. So, I guess I wanted to start out with, I've been doing Infosec stuff for a long time, since 2000. But really, I worked at NSA for 5 years, and so while you're there, you don't really sort of stay by yourself. And so it wasn't until I left there in 2005 that I started to do research, present conferences, and go conferences and stuff. And so for me, my real sort of public Infosec career began around 2007. And so I was sort of thinking, what's changed since 2007 in Infosec? Are we better off? Or did we do good? I've spoken probably 100 times. How much have I improved Infosec in all these talks I've given? And it's not like we're talking about, curing cancer or something, which you get, it's going to take a while, right? So Infosec is a field that moves pretty quick. So 7 years or 8 years, however you want to count it, it's quite a long time in our field. So just to emphasize how long this is in technology and IT, and I sort of thought back and it's what's changed just in general in 2007, and then we'll talk about how we've solved all of our problems since then. So the first thing is to think about mobile phones. These are the kind of phones that were at the top of the line in 2006. So these crappy little flip phones and Blackberries. And there's literally, in this article, there's a category called Best Phone to Do Email That's Not a Blackberry, because you just assumed that Blackberry was by far the best phone. So, mobile phone security, or mobile phones have changed a lot since 2006. And browsers are totally different beasts now. This is top of the line browsers in 2006, so IE7 just came out. So basically everyone was using IE6, now everyone is IE6 is terrible. But at the time, This was like the best of the best. And then likewise, I was using this crappy little Safari. So, and there was no such thing as Chrome. So we saw this whole talk about Chrome and how it's designed to secure from the ground up. Didn't even exist yet. So 2007 was a long time ago. And the browsers people used, like we mentioned, were way different. So back then, everyone used IE and some people used Firefox. Now, everyone uses Chrome. Still, for some reason, a lot of people use Firefox, and then a few people use IE. So it's a totally different landscape in sort of the browser space. And not only are the browsers people use different, but the sites they go to are different. So back then, everyone spent all their time on MySpace. Right? So obviously that's changed, and Yahoo and stuff. And like, unlike now, like almost no one spends time on Adult Frontbinder back then. Like, what's the deal? Like, should everyone put on that site? Anyway, the point is, like, things were different back then. Things have changed a lot. Facebook, like, it existed in 2006 and 2007, but it was just a little blip on the radar. Now it's like, Facebook. Twitter, which is the most awesome social networking site, they didn't even exist in 2006. So the point is, like, from 2007 or 6 or whatever you want to count it to now, it's a long time in our field. Like, a lot of things have changed. We've had a lot of opportunities to improve the security things and make a lot of changes to really lock down our enterprises. But the question is, have we succeeded? What's changed from the Infosec world since 2006 or 7? So, just for fun, I grabbed some talk titles from Black Hat back in 2007 and then last year. And I was going to compare because, like, you would kind of expect in 7 or 8 years, like, you would have these old talks that's like, oh yeah, we totally saw that like 2 years ago, versus like these new threats that are brand new that we've never heard of. And so, if you look at these, like, I dare you to guess which ones are the ones from 2007 versus the ones from 2014. So, like, over here you got things like local exploitation of network drivers, traffic analysis, static detection of backdoors, and then over here you got things about like SQL injection, PDF attacks, CSRF attacks. So which one is the one that is, old ancient history? Which one is the one we're still trying to deal with right now? Any guesses? You can tell by the nicer font. These are the newer ones. But that's the only way you can tell. Right? Otherwise, it's like the same shit. Oh, sorry. Forget my language. So it's the same problems that we're facing in 2007. We're facing now. We still haven't solved them. We, like, in that sense, conference talks are really no different. They're sort of the same as always. Yeah, maybe the conferences haven't changed, but the main sort of bottom line in our field is, are people breaking into our sites and stealing our data? And like breaches happened in 2007, they still happen today. Like, you don't really see this trending up or down. It's just sort of people breaking into sites. Well, what about like vendors and their patches? Have we improved? Like, are there way fewer patches now because our software is like way more secure? And not really. So, I would say like you could guess which one of these if you could read it. Is from 2007 and which one is now. But on the left you'll see it's talking about Internet Explorer 7, which was like the latest greatest then. And these are all remote code execution patches for remote code execution vulnerabilities from 2007. And over here is one that's taken from 2013, which is the last I saw where there was actually like really cool data like this. And again, it's Internet Explorer, so now it's Internet Explorer like in a greater version. And if you look, it says things like, instead of saying remote code execution, now they just say like, exploit code likely, exploit code unlikely, exploit code likely. Anyway, the point is, there's a ton of patches now for IE, there were a ton of patches then, that hasn't changed. So, despite like everyone saying Microsoft is awesome, and they are pretty awesome, and they have this great SDLC, and they got all these engineers, like, in 8 years, it's still like churning out patches. So, it's like a little depressing. So like vendors haven't really improved that much, at least not in that one, the data. Maybe reporters have wised up, and now they report on important stuff. So back in 2007, they were reporting this new story about iPhones and this unknown security researcher from Young and Hanson trying to that was New York Times. So now, that despite that headline, like it's not like iPhone log got broken into, right? So this is sort of so now maybe that we've really wised up, maybe they're watching you. It's like, yeah, well, it's sensational. If anything, it's not. So headlines still aren't very good. So there's this contest we have own to own, like every year, and you know, like if you win, you get these like sweet shoes like I have. It's like fun to own. But anyway, like maybe this contest, things have changed. Like you know, it used to be easy, now maybe like no one wins because it's too hard. Well, here's a headline from 2007: backpack via Safari browser and phone number contest. Here's one from last year: Chinese security team exploits Safari security flaw at phone notes. It's like every year someone breaks in and someone wins. So are we improving? It's kind of hard to tell. Like if you just look at these headlines, then we're not improving. It's like every year someone wins. The only difference is instead of one guy like me or Dino, it's a team of guys, and they're from China. I don't know if that's an improvement or not. So the point is, like, have we, like, I don't get it. Like we worked hard, it seems like, and it seems like we've done stuff, but it doesn't seem like we're any more secure. So it's a little depressing, and it makes me think that when I go to my job and I wonder sort of like why, you know, what am I doing? Like what's my role? Why did this company hire me? You know? And so I think, well, maybe my job is to keep the company out of the headlines, right? That's what I tell people. Like my job is to keep, you know, my company out of the headlines. And then I think it's like, well, they probably wouldn't care if there was a problem and they were in the headlines as long as it didn't affect the business, right? So maybe my actual job isn't to keep us out of the headlines, but to keep like any security incident from causing business harm, right? Maybe that's my job. So then I was like, well, technically, this is important. So I did a little research into like whether I myself or people like us are having an impact in that regard. So the question I asked myself was, and I used this like really sophisticated research tool called Yahoo Finance. Like when companies have breaches, what does the business really care about? Well, you know, stock prices are very important. So like if you have a breach, do you expect your stock to go down? And like I don't want there to be a breach where I work because I don't want my stock to go down, right? So am I doing the right thing by protecting my company? So here is Target. So the day that Target announced their breach was December 19th, and you can see their stock. And this is a span of like, 3 months. And so did the stock go down? Well, eventually, like a couple weeks afterwards, it went down. But stocks do things. But like immediately, within the next week, it had actually gone up. So it seems like even though they had essentially the worst security incident you could imagine, their stock didn't actually go down, at least not for a while. Well, maybe that was like one incident, right? So I looked around some more. So Home Depot had a big breach, and here's the mark when that happened, and you can see it on the bottom like where all the articles happened. So there was like a ton of articles a day about, oh my God, Home Depot's breached. And look what happened to their stock. Well, okay, this time it's over only like a month period, and it went up initially, right? And then it went down a little bit, and then it went up, and it went down. So like it's not like it plummeted. It's not like Home Depot almost went out of business because they had a big breach. So here's another one. So I said, well, maybe it's not breaches that are important because I don't know why people wouldn't think that's important, but maybe it's something else. And so Adobe had this huge issue where not only did they get breached, but someone stole their passwords, right? Or at least captured their passwords with the breach. And so it's like, well, maybe that's the thing that like really. And so this happened on October 4th, and you can see here, actually the stock did go down. Well, and this is the time span is maybe 3 weeks or something. So it did go down initially, but it recovered quite quickly. So maybe your job in life isn't to protect the company. Your job is to just make the company only suffer for a week. I work awful hard to do just that, you know? So one of the things I've learned in my, too many years of Infosec, and you hear people say this, like knowledgeable people, the people who are experts in the field come to you all the time, and they'll say, well, Charlie, everything can be hacked. And they're right. And today in talks, I've heard this at least 2 or 3 times before. People say, well, everything can be hacked. I'm not, I've heard from researchers. And they're probably right. And so when you see a breach like Target or Home Depot or in my hometown, the grocery store chain got hacked, and reporters would be like, hey, Charlie, were they negligent? Did they have good security? Did they have bad security? And I'd be like, I don't know. Like, it's certainly, like, my instinct tells me they probably suck. And they got hacked into But there's no way to know that. They could have been doing everything right, they were totally locked down, and they still got hacked. And so from a defender's point of view, it's sort of a drag because no matter how hard you try, you know someone can get in. And something people don't think about all the time is it's actually kind of a drag from an attacker's perspective too. So as a researcher, like a lot of my job as researchers is sort of like find flaws in products, right? And so myself and my friend Chris Alsek, we did this like really cool research, at least I thought it was cool, into cars and how you can kind of like attack them and make them do things like turn the steering wheel and break them, make the brakes turn on and stuff. And we did this talk, and I was very proud of this talk. And almost the first thing someone would say when they see this is like, well, sure, like anything can happen. I was like, oh my god, you're right, but it was hard and it was really cool. Like, why can't you respect it? It was so cool. Instead of telling me how, like, well, sure, anything can happen. So it turns out it's like the fact that anything can happen is not fun for anybody. And so now when I go to security conferences, this is what I do. I don't go to talks anymore. I just hang out. The other lesson is, and most of you probably know this, is that like people are like, well, compliance. And like everyone has to do their good. You want a picture of me and Chris? Okay, got it. I just sent it to you if you want. So anyway, so compliance is like not the solution. Like it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do to solve this problem? Well, we'll make rules and laws. And this hasn't worked at least so far. Because as we know, like see, Manning is this company that a lot of people call them to clean up after they act. And every single company in a year span that they got called in for was actually PCI compliant at the time of the attack. So that didn't help them. More on this, like so Target was totally within PCI compliance at the time of their big breach. So compliance and rules about protecting yourself isn't going to make much difference. And this is like one of the more depressing articles I've ever read. Is like a lot of the times I think about like, well, who's attacking me and who's attacking who I'm supposed to be protecting. And it's like, well, yeah, if China or the United States or someone breaks into your system, it's like, well, what are you gonna do? Like those guys are tough. But like the teenagers in Ukraine or something are attacking your computers and succeeding. Like, come on, we can do better. Like we're not that incompetent, I hope. So this is like really depressing that it says 2/3 of web attacks, whatever that means, is just for fun. It's for non-financial gain. So anyway, like we have to improve. The other thing is a lot of the rest of this talk is about like a particular passion of mine, which is vulnerabilities. And so like it turns out that we're really bad at finding vulnerabilities in software. A lot of this talk, or a lot of this conference is really about how to do that and how to organize to do that. And sort of thing. So anyway, so there's been a lot of examples, especially recently with like Bash and very shell bugs and stuff. But this is one that happened, within the last year and a half that really depressed me. So this one is about X, which is like the window manager for Linux. And the reason that had a particular sore spot for me is because sometime back in like 2003, maybe so like 10 years before this, I personally audited this code. And so like I did find bugs, but I know all of it. So if you look closely, like there was a Stack Overflow and it would allow, some sort of code execution. And this bug was introduced in 1991. So like there are probably people who weren't even born yet when this bug was introduced. And it's open source, like everyone could read it. It's all more eyes on the problem. But this bug was in code for so many years, I don't know if I can do the math. It's like 15 years or something, right? Stack Overflow, most simple kind of bug, in the code for 15 years. People like me have audited it, we missed it. It's like, what are we gonna do? It's like such a drag. So why are we such failures? So there's a lot of reasons, and I'll go into a bunch of these more in a bit. But I more or less block it off into these 4 major points. So we all use insecure products, and I'll say why they're insecure in a bit. So making secure products is expensive, and the most important thing is there's no way to really tell which products are secure and which ones aren't. And then of course there's this whole like defender's dilemma, which is it only takes one mistake for the attacker. So defenders have to be perfect, and attackers just have to be perfect. Yeah. So before we go into that, let's just talk about bugs and vulnerabilities and why they exist and who uses them and that sort of stuff. So do they mention zero day in the movie Hacker? Do they use that phrase? They don't use that? Oh man, that's delicious. So most people in this room know. So zero days are essentially vulnerabilities where there's no patch yet. It's new. There's nothing. There's very little you can do as a defender against these sort of attacks. And this is like, okay, you're talking about bug bounties and try to find all this information, and you can find other sort of ways. But the point is that there's vulnerabilities in software, we don't know what they all are. So like, why would you use one? Well, if you were a bad guy, you would use one because you were attacking a target that patches those. So one of the other points to take, not all zero days are just bad, right? They're not bad inherently. Sometimes they can be used for good. So, for example, in the Matrix, in the Matrix they did use it for good. And of course, like we saved all mankind with a zero day against some sort of Apple product that was in a spaceship or something. I don't remember the details, but definitely zero day was used. Definitely, it was very good. But mostly they're used for evil, I must say. But sometimes. So, who uses zero days? Well, pen testers sometimes, bad guys use it for bad stuff. Corporations maybe, governments, there's no way to know, but we kind of maybe think that. So here's some other sort of like just little fun anecdotes about zero days. So there's this used to be a researcher named Raven, and her quote is, "Zero day can happen to anyone," because she was giving a talk, much like myself right now, and someone hacked her computer and made these silly stuff right while she was on stage. And like as an instance of like how totally stupid most people who attend security talks, not you guys, you're the exception. But a typical security conference attendee, everyone made fun of her for years, right? Oh my god, I can't believe someone hacked your computer while you're on stage. You're such an idiot. You don't know how to do security. And she's like, well, it can happen to anyone. And she's totally right. Like, it can totally happen right now, right? I'm not special. I have a computer and runs software that some people in Cupertino wrote, and they're not necessarily the most competent security engineers. And so there's no doubt you could break into my computer right now if you really tried. And so I just bring this up because I feel totally terrible that she got such a bad rap, and she was totally right the whole time. So here's another quote. Dave Vitale says his company sometimes purchases zero days from researchers, so you can use them for whatever they use them for. And so his thing is like, well, someone asks him if you buy one of these things and then when someone talks about it, it's not worth anything because it's not a zero day anymore. He's like, well, sometimes you get burned, sometimes not. So anyway, just sort of interesting perspective on things I thought. And then my famous quote about zero days is, I won Pono one year, and I had 2 bugs actually. So I won with one, and the other one I just kept for another year and won the next year with it. So like all good researchers, I sound. So sort of the point, besides my awesome Heisman pose, is that like what was the incentive for me to report 2 bugs when I had instead of just one? And there was no incentive. The incentive for me was to wait a year and win the contest again. So like we need to start thinking about how to incentivize people like me and you to report bugs when we find them instead of just sitting on them and like collecting them like, I don't know, troll dollars or something. Okay. So one thing, like being a security researcher is fun because I'll take a product like Adobe Reader or Office or something, and I'll fuzz it and I'll find a bug and you guys are ready to find a bug that you can find, right? It's great fun. But now that I actually work for a company that is, my job is to find bugs and stop people from doing that to me, it's not quite as fun and it's harder. Because it's like, okay, well, before I just had to find one bug, and now I have to find like all the bugs, and that's a little harder. And there's this article where Microsoft talks about how long they run their fuzzers. And I used to like make fun of this endlessly. I found it so funny that they have this thing where they say they run it for 500,000 iterations. That means they run their fuzzer 500,000 times essentially. And I was like, well, why that number? You know what I mean? And it's like, if I worked at Microsoft, what I would do is I would write a really bad fuzzer that never caught any bugs, and then I know for sure when I hit 500,000, which it would, because it doesn't have bugs, I'd be done. Right? Like, oh, they're idiots, you know, like they're incentivized to write bad pledges and that kind of books. And then I worked at a company and I was like, okay, I wrote this pledge, I'm gonna turn it on. It's like, when do I turn it off? Dude, I don't know. So I was like, 500,000 sounds good to me. So anyway, now that I've sort of seen the other side of things, I can understand why there's these kind of rules, even though they really don't make a whole lot of sense. Anyway, the point is, it's hard to know. Which reminds me of a story about me at Black Hat 2011. So there's me with a little more hair on my head. And this is Brad Arkin, he works at Adobe. So we were hanging out, like, by then I had stopped going to actual talks at conferences. And we were hanging out at the pool, and I said to him, hey Brad, I was working at a consulting company at the time. Hey Brad, you need to hire us. Like, I'm good at finding bugs, I'll find a bunch of bugs in Adobe Reader and Flash or whatever it was I was trying to put myself out for. And he says to me, Charlie, we don't need to find any more bugs. We're done finding bugs. We don't care about bugs anymore. I was like, you're crazy. What are you talking about? He says, we're going to build this sandbox thing, and we're not going to worry about bugs. Because you can find 10 bugs, you can find 100 bugs. It's not going to help us. There's thousands of bugs in our products. For real? Like, you're not going to look for bugs anymore? He's like, no, I'm not looking. We're going to build a sandbox. And I was like, you're crazy. So 2011, I left Black Hat. I thought Adobe was crazy. It turns out later on, he was totally right. So what they did was they built a sandbox, and so at the time, if you remember back in 2011, everyone was hammering like Flash because everyone hammered IE and browsers and stuff for a while, and then that got hard. So then everyone started nailing these sort of third-party plugins like Flash. That was easier. And then Adobe built a sandbox, and what it meant was, man, there's still tons of bugs in Flash, but you couldn't really exploit them very easily because you would need like bugs and make sandboxes first. So then, hackers being as they are lazy people, they just were like, well, screw that, we'll do something easier. So then they moved on to Java or something else, and then they moved on to whatever else. And so the point was, he was right. He just made it harder to where the hackers moved on and found other targets. Which sort of lends the question, like, if you work at a company and your software has bugs, like, what is the effect of finding a bug? So if you have a bug bounty program and someone reports a bug, like what happens? So your software either looks like the one on the left or the one on the right. Either you got just like a few bugs floating around, you've done a really good job in charting bugs, or you got this thing on the right that's full of bugs, like Adobe Flash. And the question is, what happens when you fix one of these? And so like, if you fix one of the bugs on the left, like you've done a great job. Like you nailed like a third of the bugs are gone in one screen. But if you fix this bug, have you really improved security? I mean, you've improved it, but not really. Like it's still super easy to find a bug, and it's still going to be easy to exploit it probably. And it really took, as an attacker, it really takes no more resources to attack this product whether this bug's fixed or not. So it starts to make you think about like. How much effort you put into fixing bugs should be sort of a function of how many bugs are in your software. So, what are some examples of code like this? Well, my favorite low-density software software that has low-density bugs, how about that, is Apache. So Apache is a web server. It's very well written. It has very few bugs, and I personally look at it, and it's very tough to crack. I'm not saying there's no bugs. Maybe tomorrow there'll be a remote in Apache. I doubt it. And then you look at something else like FFmpeg, which is something that is inside a lot of software. Like I think he's mentioned it's like Chrome actually. So it's a video player. Some guy recently fuzzed it for 2 years, found 1,000 bug fixes. Right? So it's like obviously there's a ton of bugs there. Do I think that there's only 1,120 bugs in that software? No, I think there's way more than that. But the fact is, he fixed a ton of bugs, right? So there's definitely software out there that has lots of bugs, and there's software out there that has hardly any bugs. And you have to ask yourself, should you behave differently in those two situations? So just to show you, this is just an example of a Google search I did. So if you search for like when the last time there was a heap overflow in Apache, in the main HTTP module. So there's this one, if you Google that, the first thing you see is something in some module doesn't really count. Because not many people have that running. This one was in 2009, this one's in 2002, 2009. So there's one in 2009, I don't think there was ever even an exploit for it. The last time I think there was an actual exploit for Apache, 2002. That's 13 years ago. If you can have like software from 2002, if you put it, or 2003, say, and I just put it on the internet, it's going to be safe. Like, that's pretty impressive. So, given the right circumstances, it is possible to write functional software that's pretty secure and easy to attack. And Apache is an example of that. So here's a smart guy who actually gives good keynotes, so I should have invited him. So his idea is that about this whole problem of when to fix bugs and when not, was that he says like fix all the bugs no matter what, and that it's hard, people should get paid for it. I agree with those points. And then he has this interesting idea that the U.S. government should just buy all the bugs. And his idea, and he's right that they have plenty of money to do that. That if they just would say, any time you find a bug, get an offer from anybody, we'll pay you 10 times that. And if that happened, they would, I think he's right that in some software, all the bugs would dry up pretty quickly. So it's an interesting idea. But and then on the other side of sort of the idea is there's this academic paper by Matt Blazin and some of his folks. And they say that the length of the period after the release of software product and before the story of horse owners primarily functional familiarity. So another non-academic way to say that is that it's not about code quality, it's about whether people look at your code. So like if I write code and no one looks, and only 2 people look at it, they're not going to find many bugs. But if I write code and it turns out now this code is going to be inside every iPhone on Earth, and everyone's just looking at it, they're going to find a lot of bugs. And so it didn't have to do with how well the code was written, but really, or whether I used the SDLC or whether I used fuzzing or whatever. What it really mattered was how attractive it was to it. And I think that's true. So it sort of asks the question, like, what do you do? If you have software that has tons of bugs, what's your strategy? Well, you can find bugs pretty easily, but it doesn't help you much. So like, what do you do? On the low-density bugs, if you find bugs, it's awesome. It really helps a lot, but it's hard, right? So you might look for a long time and not find anything. So it's for you to decide what to do. But if it was me, what I would do if I had the software that had hardly any bugs, I would look for bugs and try to fix them. And there's really no other else I would do. If I had software that had tons of bugs, I would take the Brad Arkin approach. Be like, screw it. Like, we'll look for bugs just for kicks, but like, I know it doesn't help much. I'm gonna go like a whole different route. I'm gonna try to like make exploitation difficult. And do some other sort of thing, something I can engineer and measure to try to make the software better instead of just trying to fix all the bugs because it's just too hard. So I think that was a really smart approach. The other thing is, if you eventually find enough bugs, like the FFmpeg example where they found 1,100 bugs, like eventually you'll drive up all those bugs, right? Eventually there'll still be a ton of bugs, but they're going to be really hard to find. You'll have used all the techniques everyone uses, and so, like if you just start a basic fuzz run, it won't work anymore. So you can make it harder. You can take high density software and try to like move it into this low density category, but it's really tough. So hopefully you just don't have that kind of stuff. Alright, so this is a tweet. If you notice this talk is just random, I'm sorry. I was telling Chris earlier that I used to give this talk, something like this talk a while ago. It was very well organized. And then like every so often I'd be like, oh, I should talk about that, or I should talk about that. And so instead of like restructuring the talk, I just like skip random spots. So anyway, apologize for that in advance. Anyway, here's a tweet that I saw the other day, or maybe a month or two ago, January 3rd. So this is here. Neil deGrasse Tyson, the guy who did like that cool Cosmos Part 2 show. So he says, Obama authorized North Korean sanctions over cyber hacking. The solution there, it seems to me, is to create unhackable systems. So Twitter just went crazy, right? At least in my little corner of Twitter where I hang out. Everyone was just like totally bashing this poor guy, right? So, they're like, I'm going to go to proof money, yeah, okay. And then this guy's like, hey, nerd, go away, you don't know what you're talking about. And then this person says, like, well, let's build the planet black box, which is actually pretty funny. But the point is, like, everyone's hating on him. And it was like me and like one other nerd in the corner who like was like, well, really, like, I don't know, I don't think that's a terrible idea, right? So what is our goal? Like, if we're not trying to create unhackable systems, what are we trying to do? Like, make hackable ones? Like, I don't really get it. So like, that is our goal, right? We're trying to keep the bad guys out. So like, let's do it. You know, like, let's, instead of spending our time training our users, which is a waste, or really, are you going to trust a user who wakes up at 2 a.m. and like is like on their email to do the right thing? No, it's stupid. Don't. They're not going to do the right thing. So you need, instead of doing that, let's take a technological solution, that's what we do for a living, and make it hard to break into systems. I think it's reasonable. So anyway, way to go. Stick with Cosmos, but I support you on this particular issue. So the point is, like, let's do it. Like, we can, I know it's hard, right? And no one said it's easy, but if we're not working towards that, what are we working towards? All right, so back to the organized portion of the talk. Let's talk about why the products we use are insecure. And this is basically what really sort of gets us in the end anyway, is like I mentioned, I'm not some super hacker on Scorpion. I'm just some guy who has a MacBook. And if my software has flaws, everyone's software has flaws, and you can break into my computer just as easy as you can break into anyone else's. So let's talk about why these vulnerabilities are here in the first place. So the point is, like, it's hard, right? We all know it's hard to write software that doesn't have bugs. It takes time, it takes money, it slows down development, all this kind of stuff. And the general perception is like, well, we need new features. Let's write new software and get it out the door. And that's what developers care about, right? And that's what managers really care about. And we're just trying to slow them down as much as we can to make it as secure as possible before it's up the door. Which is fine, right? The problem is when it comes to like measuring security. It's like, if you gave me the choice between, like, I could use, web browser A, and it's going to cost me $10, and it's like a piece of crap. Or I can use web browser B, and it's $100, but it's super secure. It's like, well, I'd probably use A, but at least I have the option to use the secure web browser and pay more. But the point is, there's no such thing in security, right? So, like, Microsoft says, hey man, our browser is super secure. We have SLC, we have browser, we have blah blah blah, we have Microsoft Research. And then, like, we have people come up here on stage and talk about how secure Chrome is. Well, we designed it to be, secure from the beginning, and it has separate processing, right? And then it's like, okay, and then Safari, it's like, well, it works, it just works, right? The point is, every company says their product's secure, and there's no way really to tell who's full of it and who's not, right? And even like experts can't necessarily tell whether one product is more secure than the other without spending a year or something. And even then, you don't necessarily have like real measurable metrics or whatever. You have just sort of like, well, this code looks kind of tough. So the fact that you can't measure security means that there's no incentive for vendors to actually make their product secure, right? So why should I spend $1 million making my product secure if you're not even going to tell that I spent $1 million? Right? I'll just say it's secure, and what are you going to do? So companies are not incentivized to make their products especially secure. And so if you ask me this question, hey Charles, which is more secure, Microsoft Office or OpenOffice or LibreOffice or whatever the latest incarnation is? It's like, I could guess that it's Microsoft Office, but I can't say for sure. And same thing with like, if I'm going to go and I'm willing to pay a premium for the most secure website because I don't want to have to get a new credit card every month like I do now. Like, I would pay 10% premium on the website that's going to sell me a book for that's actually secure. Like, I can't tell whether Amazon and Borders is more secure. I don't know. Like, only they know, and even they probably don't really know. So the fact that you can't tell which is secure means you can't sort of build that into the price, and that means that there's really no reason for them to like actually spend the money to do that. Because after all, at the end, like, suppose Microsoft or Apple or someone makes a product that has a bug in it, then what happens? Well, there's a bug, and maybe I get owned, and like, oh, the stupid computer has malware on this reinstall it. I mean, this is just how we live, right? Like, we're used to that. And if some company gets compromised, how are you get compromised, and we find out it was because there was some zero-day attack or something. Well, it's like, oh, well, well, there's not really any consequences, right? So vendors make secure products, we use them, and nothing bad ever happens to the vendors, at least. And so, just to like research more proof of this, like again, I'm sort of a closet economist. So I thought back about like the coolest exploit that I ever wrote, which was this one where I could send you a text message and I could take over your iPhone. So I was like, well, you would think like that was totally in the newspaper that day, and I bet you like all those Apple investors were like, sell, Apple's going down. Well, of course, that's just my fantasy world. In real life, the stock market, the stock continued to go up like it always does for Apple. So, my this is the pinnacle of my career is finding this particular vulnerability and exploit. No effect at all on Apple stock. If anything, it helped it. Likewise, it's not just Apple. So even Microsoft. So like this is way back in time, 2001. I don't know if you remember this Ninderworm. It was like before anyone really had like firewalls at their house or consumer routers or whatever. So they just went crazy, took over everyone's computer. I think like some people said it took out the power grid in the East Coast or whatever. It was nuts. It happened in that very valley. The next day, just the stocks started going up, never went back down. So it's like, okay, companies making secret products cause huge havoc, and nothing bad happens. So, if I was a rational company and I saw this, like, why would I spend money to make a secure product? Well, what's the point? Like, I could save that money and give it to my shareholders and they'll be with it. So what can you do? Well, what you can do is if you do have some money for your security budget, which hopefully you have a little bit, you can at least make it harder, right? So you're never going to be able to keep everybody out, but you can at least think about who is actually your threat? Who's going to be attacking you? And can you keep them out? Alright, so like, you're not going to keep out the NSA no matter how hard you try. And this comes from where I'm going to say. But what you can keep out is those kids who are just doing this for fun, right? So think about that. Don't spend all of your resources trying to keep out these nation-state attackers because you're not going to do it anyway. Spend your resources against the attackers that you actually, are actual threats to your enterprise. So this is just another example of companies, vendors are going to do what vendors want to do to maximize their profit. They're companies. They're trying to make money. They're not trying to make friends or make it a happy sunshine place. So, Apple's going to do things like let the Chinese government look at their code. Cool. Like, that's what's in their best interest. They're going to do things like kick poor little security researcher Charlie Miller out of their, development team. So I can get that too. So because even though I'm trying to help them, it's not really a help for them because it's like that. Right? A real help for them is if someone says I'm going to buy a bunch of your stuff, which kind of does, or they say you're the best. That's a big help for them. Me saying you're not the best, you have problems, it's not the best for them. So they don't like that. So we can't really count on vendors to do the right thing because they are trying to make money, and the best way to make money is not necessarily to make really super products. So normally when you have situations where corporations can't be trusted to do the right thing in their own best interest, then you have to make laws and bring the government in. But right now there are no laws that talk about secure products or what you would have to do or anything like that. And it's well, I know. We'll get all us security researchers together and we'll lobby Congress. That's the stupidest idea ever. Because lobbying takes money and corporations have a lot of money and security researchers have almost no money. So we're not going to be able to win that way. And the other thing that would be really awesome is the reason that I can plug in my toaster or my microwave and know that it's not going to burn my house down is because there's this thing called the Virus Laboratory and they have to test all electrical devices to make sure that they're safe. And so it'd be cool if there was some sort of certification like that for software too, right? So it's and before you put your refrigerator online, it's got to at least be looked at by this group who says oh yeah, you don't have total shell command injection on every one of your interfaces or something, right? So it'd be nice if there was some sort of body that did this, but right now there isn't. If you were a total hawk, you could say well, the military will help us, but of course, if anyone believes that. The main issue is vulnerability is it'd be nice to fix them all, but if you're in the military, it'd be even better to just board them all and attack their enemies with them. So it's not the fact that vulnerability information is dual use means that you can't really trust the military. It's necessarily they like to keep those. So perhaps our savior will be, our final hope is the free press. And they're going to come out and they're going to, show us the truth and get everyone rallying behind secure software, and we're all going to, win from that. So the problem with that is that they're not necessarily also motivated to, make the world a better place. They're motivated to, sell newspapers or, in nowadays, get people to click on their ads and stuff. So, you're not going to see, all these headlines, new Chrome new Chrome sandbox, even more effective. Is that going to be the leading story? Probably not. Or SDLC at Microsoft improved. Not selling headline. I wouldn't click on that article. It sounds super boring. But if you're going to talk about these new theoretical attacks that are never going to actually happen, that's kind of exciting. I'm going to look at that. So here's some of my own favorite, or whatever. So, we got NSA's own hardware backdoor may still be a problem from hell. I wonder who actually gave that quote, but anyway, it's probably not my biggest personal concern that my Linksys router at my house has been backdoored than today. I have a lot more things to worry about than that. And then there's these articles I love these ones about, since I'm doing mobile security, or I did it for a while. So mobile, and these are old articles. I did that on purpose because now we can look back and see how. So these are in January 2013 saying, mobile attacks are really going to happen in 2013. It's going to be horrible. We're all going to our phones are going to catch on fire. I don't know. But now we can look back and what happened in 2013? There were breaches and stuff, but it wasn't because of mobile phones, right? So mobile attacks didn't really happen, and they're still not really happening. They didn't happen in 2013. And now 2015, they didn't happen in 2014 either, right? So they're off by 2 years, and for the indefinite future, there's all these articles that get you scared about stuff that aren't really real threats. And of course, if you run an enterprise and you're worried about your TVs, you really have sort of missed the boat. And so part of the problem with this is these so-called stunt hackers. These guys are the worst. So there's these jackasses over here. The world's best stunt hacker? Oh, what an ass. Oh wait, that's me. So anyway, and the reason that these guys exist is because I don't know, we just researchers we just do this for fun. It's a hobby, so why not have fun with it, right? And I'm not trying to solve the world's security problems. I'm just goofing on. And this is why I'm not really helping, and why security hasn't. One reason why security hasn't improved in 2007 is because I'm just doing it for kicks. And newspapers really eat this up because people want to hear oh my god, my car's gonna get hacked, and you would people literally email me out of the blue. Charlie, I read your article. I think my car's been hacked. What should I do? And literally, I'll send back one sentence to them that says, "Your car has not been hacked, Charlie." That's all I say. And because it's hard, it's not a real threat, and they'll write back, no, Charlie, I haven't even told you about my car yet. You don't even know yet. And I'm no, I know. Your car's been hacked, Charlie. That's all. And then I'll be like, maybe you should talk to Chris. And then Chris is dude, he was emailing me before he emailed you. So, anyway, the point is, this is sensational, it's fun, but it's not really helping security. Because car attacks are real in a sense, but this is something that's happened 10, 20 years on the road. It's not happening So here's some more shocking articles that have been in the press that I hate to admit that I caused. So these are about me and my research, and again, none of these things, while they were fun and exciting and gave good talks, really affected anyone, right? So these are not real attacks, these are just attacks that are sort of fun to talk about. And it's fine, it's like reading a trashy romance novel. It's not hurting anybody, but don't think that's real, and don't arm your whole world around the reality of romance novels. Not that I would ever do that. This is totally distracting. All right, so besides stunt hackers, so that's why you can't count on the press to help us out in this situation. So the golden star, the people who are going to have to save the day, lots of research. So what about us researchers? So in the past, like we used to do this, like find bugs, like Katie said, because we wanted to put our name on Microsoft Bulletin. That was it. You know, if you could do that, you were pretty badass. But now, what happened? Well, like I have a mortgage, I have children, you know, and you know that private school, they don't take Microsoft bug bulletins as payment. So I have to actually make money now, and you know I'm not alone. So now researchers are more interested in sort of becoming green hats, as we said. So making money than necessarily getting bulletins anymore. So what happens? You find a bug. Cool. What are you gonna do? Well, you can tell a company that might leave your name in a bulletin, in a security bulletin, or you might sue you if you can get something. But and probably you get your name in a security bulletin. You could sell it to like ZDI or somebody who will give you like $5,000 or something, $2,000, which is pretty good, or a bug bounty program, maybe. And it's gonna get fixed, and the whole world's happy. You're happy, you have some money. Or you can sell it to some bad guy or some government or something, and no one's ever gonna get that fixed because of you, but you get like a ton of money. And we can argue all day about what's morally right or ethical or whatever. But the fact is that these are your choices. And so, for me, as someone who like uses software and doesn't want to get hacked, it sort of makes me wonder, like, why does my security have to depend on what like some kid who found some bug decides to do? Especially when, like, that kid's gonna take $100,000. Who would? Like, if I was a 17-year-old, I'd take $100,000, no problem. So like, internet security should not depend on what these kids have to do. So we need to figure out a way to sort of incentivize that of those three choices, the one that helps everyone is also the one that they want to do because it helps them. We need to figure out a way to do that. So I'm running out of time, but let me just say that I'm depressed, and you guys might be sort of feeling a little down on yourselves. But there is some good news. There's some hope. Like I have seen some things recently that I think are sort of positive. So Harkley, like everyone was like, oh man, worst bug ever, or like I hate information security and stuff, and I was like, no, this is good. And the reason is because I would be like driving my car and on NPR they'd be talking about Harkley. I was like, whoa, like this is totally mainstream, and that's fine to be like, oh my god, like this is normally what NPR articles like. Hackers have managed to break into all the internet servers in the world with the hard to bleed bug, right? So this is what I'm expecting. And instead, they're like, oh, so Heartbleed is open source, and this means that everyone can look at it, and this means that everyone has it. I was like, oh my god, they're actually talking about like serious real topics that have to do with security. So anyway, the point is, I was really happy with the way that this was covered because it did talk about actual real issues that are important and that we should all think about. So like, maybe we all should use it. Maybe every website in the world should use openness. This is something we should think about. So anyway, that was good. The other thing is, like, even though I've been bad-mouthing like how bad security is, like things have actually improved. It's just like it's hard to measure. It's like there are fewer bugs, even though again, can't really measure that. We got sandboxes now, code signing, we got ASMR depth and all that kind of stuff. And so when I tell people that, and I'm like, people are like, how come we don't do Keynote anymore? I'm like, well, it's too hard. It's not worth my time to do it. They're like, what do you mean it's too hard? Someone always wins. I was like, yeah, but the point is that it's harder, and like it's not worth my time to spend that much effort. And so I made this chart. This is a number of people capable of running exploits as time goes on because things have gotten harder. Now the data from this was taken by me just making it up. It's totally, I think, pretty accurate. Anyone can write a Stack Overflow exploit, super easy. Now it's extremely hard. That's the point of this chart. So anyway, the point is, yes, there is still someone who can write an exploit, but there's not as many as there used to be. The other thing is that, like, you see vendors doing smart things, like Symantec now admits that antivirus maybe isn't the bullet, the silver bullet that they said it was. I totally agree. You can see, like, money being paid to researchers. So, like, there was a cyber fast track. It was awesome. I got paid to do our research and NFC research. Other people got paid to do a bunch of research. It was really great. Like, I can't imagine doing research for free now after that. But then, of course, like good things, it ended. But still, like we saw talks today about how bug bounties are effective and they pay people and that gets people to research. So this is good, and I see not only are there more bug bounties, but the amount has been going up. So this is just more data on like how bug bounties are actually effective. And so you see like a lot of bug bounty queries, like 5,000 is like quite a bit, which is a lot for a lot of people, but like, you know, come on, like we all drive Porsches, we know. So like, that's not so much for us. But it is going up. And so you see things like you saw, Rainforest Puppy, he won $100,000. That's serious money. And so there are some like new prices. As this goes up, I think, I think it's very positive when I see the prices going up. So this is again the Katie talking about. And another thing is like no prices are going up. And this is sort of the actual data of how things have gotten harder. Because as things get harder, you have to pay more to get people to do it. The really sad thing about this graph, the thing that really makes me just like want to curl up and cry, is I won 4 times. My 4 bullet points are the ones way down the bottom. Drag. The other thing that's happened, and I swear I'll be done in like 1 minute, is people have started saying like, well, we all use this open source software, maybe we should all chip in some money and like get it audited. So I think it's a great idea. And then there's this new tool that's come out of some researcher called AFL Fuzz, which I think is like super revolutionary. It's just sort of getting started, and these are all like bugs that found. So I mean, there are some like super positive things that are coming out of what we're doing now. It's just that overall, it sort of seems like we haven't improved much, and maybe we haven't improved much, but I'm still here, I'm still fighting, so hopefully you guys will too. So I guess in conclusion, like we're not great, right? Frankly, we could do better. But there are some highlights, and we are gonna, if we keep going, things are harder. It's just they're not so much harder that you can actually sort of. So, anyway, that's it for me. Thanks a lot.